Hi there. I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast. Welcome to this episode brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, an exclusive mastermind for physician entrepreneurs. Today, we're very honored to have Dr. Heather Hammerstedt. She's actually the CEO and founder of Wholist, an online weight management program. Dr. Hammerstedt considers herself a health curator. She hosts the Curate Your Health Podcast. She's a speaker and lifestyle medicine and emergency room physician. We have a great conversation with Dr. Hammerstedt about the many layers of creating and building a successful online coaching business. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Welcome to our podcast, Design Your Physician Life. We're very happy today. We have Heather Hammerstedt. She's a physician and emergency room physician. So welcome, Dr. Hammerstedt. How are you today?
I'm great. Happy Friday. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Idaho. It's cold but sunny, so happy to be inside and warming up a little bit.
Awesome. We're extremely excited to have you here. You have been one of most wonderful coaches in our Maxillary Mastermind, our physician entrepreneur mastermind. And we're really looking forward to hear a little bit more about you, your career, and how entrepreneurship has changed your life. And we're very excited to have you tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We're going to start from the beginning. Just tell us, I'd like to start with your story about how you decided, what inspired you specifically to become a physician?
Well, my joke is, which is like kind of a joke, but kind of not, is that my boyfriend when I was 14 told me girls couldn't be doctors and I'm just super stubborn. So it's kind of a joke, but kind of not. That actually happened.
Well, first of all, you had a boyfriend at 14, little girl?
Right. So I don't know. I've always just wanted to take care of other people. I just remember being very little, like 5, 6 years old, and like thinking that that's what I wanted to do. And I am pretty stubborn. And so I just decided that's what I was going to do. I just put my head down and studied really hard. And I can't imagine anything else that I would rather be doing. Even now when things are complicated and hard in medicine, I still am happy with the choices that I made all those years ago.
So you're here because of a boy, huh? So these boys, I'm telling you, they ruin your life.
or inspired me.
Save it. That's awesome. So where were you when you were 14 and had this boyfriend with that vision that women could not be doctors?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because nobody in my family has been in medicine, and they were all, I did have a fair number of PhD academics, my brother and my dad, and so certainly some higher level brains, that's for sure, but no one in medicine. And I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and my parents just basically always told me that I could do anything that I wanted to do. And so it was kind of shocking to hear as someone might think that that's not the truth, And I just have always been that kind of person who just kind of put my head down and went for my dreams. My dad has a story about me showing up to Olympic development soccer practice with a tie-dye shirt on and walking up to coach and being like, I'm wearing the tie-dye so you know who I am. Just ridiculous.
So obviously before medicine, there was soccer, right?
Yeah, soccer and downhill ski racing were my sports through college, actually.
So tell us a little bit more about that, your competitions.
Super fun. Soccer was always really fun. I ended up being a sweeper, so kind of the last defense before the goalie, and really enjoyed playing through. I played through my sophomore year in college, and really learning that team environment and how to read what everyone else's skills were. I think is something that has made me a good parent and a good doctor, kind of moving forward as well. And then downhill ski racing is a very individual, face your own limitations and your own fears kind of sport. And so I'm thankful for that. I met my husband because I was a ski bum in Montana after college. My kids and I are skiing a couple times a week here in Idaho. So it's a good lifelong sport as well.
Any major accidents or injuries for,
For
for
sure.
Heather?
Yeah, multiple concussions, fractured a couple vertebra.
I'm pretty sure I'm from Puerto Rico, so we obviously don't have snow. And I wasn't much of a sports person myself, but I did learn snowboarding. I took on snowboarding, but far from any star. I was like, always on the floor. But I'm pretty sure I had a concussion one day. I couldn't remember my house, where it was, and I had this radiating pain on my thorax. So I probably had, something bulging in my thorax after a fall, and I was about to fall off a cliff.
Oh my goodness.
But it was fun though.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that. So tell me how you balance, because I'm guessing that you were competitive if you're in college going through that. How did you balance that with college life and getting the grades to get into medical school?
I just put my head, like I said, we can put my head down and studied. I was always the kind of studier that I could do like marathon sessions, and I would just like write things over and over and over again until I had them memorized enough, more than understanding them, probably, honestly. It was just memorizing them. And so I'm just, like I said, just a little stubborn, had a goal.
So you knew that you wanted to be a doctor when you went to college, so you organized yourself around that idea, everything around going through there. And what was your undergrad?
I went to Bucknell University, and I was a biochemistry major with a Spanish minor.
Qué bien. So did you just apply directly from college then, going all the way to medical school?
I did.
Or did you take a break?
I got in and then deferred a year, which was pretty amazing.
Declined a spot in medical school after?
No, I deferred. I got in, but they let me defer for a year. So I went to South America for 6 months, moved to Montana for 6 months, picked up my husband along the way, and then went back to Philly.
What did you do in South America?
I was teaching elementary school in a very small town in Ecuador.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Did you just go like with the group? How did you organize that?
It was an organization called Global Roots at the time. And they kind of organize, places for you to live and who needs the help in what kind of project. And it was great.
That's great. So from the beginning, you were not only, like determined for your goal, but you also were a risk taker, because going to a country like that far away from your family and being so young, but, even within our organization, there's still a risk there.
My mom was not happy with me. I had studied abroad in college in Sweden, so it had some time away there, and then was lucky, through soccer and skiing when I was even in high school doing a bunch of traveling abroad. So I had more experience than I think most 21-year-olds do for travel-wise.
That's awesome. And where did you go to medical school?
I went to Temple.
Okay. And then after Temple, you decided on emergency medicine, huh?
Yeah. And ended up in Boston at one of the Harvard programs for emergency medicine training, the Beth Israel Deaconess program. And then I stayed there for a year and taught while I got my master's of public health afterwards, and then moved to Idaho and been here since. So
you picked up your boyfriend, now husband, in college, and he followed with you through all that stuff?
I picked him up in Montana in between college and med school. We were working at a ski shop together, and he offered me moonshine, and I was smitten. So yeah, he moved back to Philly with me from Northwest Montana, which is a big change, that's for sure.
Did he make the moonshine himself?
No, people used to pay us to tune their skis with alcohol.
What a job. Things have changed, a little bit.
Right.
I think we now need to take some alcohol at times to do the job, no?
Yeah.
Anyway, so who convinced you, or, who said, who was your mentor or your inspiration to say, I want to be an emergency medicine physician. This is so cool. This is what I want to do all my life. How did that happen for you?
Well, I thought I was going to be in family medicine. Honestly, I even ran a little interest group for it in medical school. And then at the beginning of my 4th year, had my emergency medicine rotation. And it was really like a gut check of like, wait, like I didn't really know this, I didn't know that this was a possibility. And it's interesting is I went into medicine because I wanted to do sort of what we're doing with Wholist now, which is, food and movement and mindfulness and all those parts that like they didn't teach us in medical school. And I remember like trying to have conversations with people like when I was a student and like them not wanting to hear it, and realizing that emergency medicine was an opportunity where whether it's a real emergency or if it's a perceived emergency, like people really need you at that moment, and sometimes are ready to hear hard things at that moment as well. And I fell in love with the opportunity to really make an impact in different ways. And it caused me to like let go of a lot of what I thought that I wanted in medicine. But now, 20 some years later, I feel like I've come full circle and I'm like adding what I wanted out of medicine to my life in a different way that I wasn't expecting. That's just outside of conventional medicine.
So as you say now, you're the creator of Wholist. So explain to us the concept of Wholist. And you've said how it matches what you were really thinking at the time and how that would match like in real life, in practice, if you encounter an emergency medicine patient.
Yeah. So my goal with Wholist is to really teach people how their brains are working around making sustainable health change. So rewiring the way that they're thinking about their food and their movement and their thoughts and their exercise and their sleep, all these portions of us that we call like self-care. But really when it comes down to it, those are my air quotes for people who are listening, that are really just essential to rounding out like our whole person. And so what I'm trying to do is use the evidence behind why all of those things prevent and reverse disease, but teach it in a way that people can take the information and then utilize coaching to implement those changes into their life. So it's not like woo-woo. It's like your brain like physically is having you eat sugar because of X, Y, and Z. Like what can we modify in your life so that you can replace what that sugar is giving you with something that gets you to your goals, whether that's how you're sleeping or how your brain is, or whether you're trying to reverse diabetes or whatever it is. So the name Wholist is kind of a play on, hospitalist, laborist, gastroenterologist, just talking about the whole person, and really trying to look at everybody with a fresh lens and figuring out like, what is it that they want in terms of how they're feeling or how they're looking or how their brain is functioning, and how can we give them, a team member to really help them get there.
So if you had the opportunity to apply this in the emergency room, which would be a little bit unusual given our trainings, right? As you say, like they don't teach us in medical school. How do you see that playing? Like somebody comes with a heart attack, for example. What would you say, being now thinking about Wholist applied in the emergency room?
Well, so the easy thing is that I actually have prescriptions that I write out on nutrition and on exercise that I will print out for people. And I have discharge instructions with like very, brief summary of like how they need to be thinking about how they're moving or eating. That it's not the heart attack person that I'm going to be able to reach. It's the person who came in with chest pain that they thought was going to be a heart attack, but it wasn't. And it was something else. And that was an event that like triggers them to be worried enough to be able to hear information. And so I'm pretty good at this point of like figuring out where someone is in those kind of trans-theoretical behavior change kind of model that we talk about in medicine and motivational interviewing and coaching, is like, is someone preparing to change, or are they ready to change, or are they pre-contemplative? And I can talk to people in a different way depending on where I think they am, because it's like someone who has not thought about giving up drinking or smoking is not going to like go to switch to like a whole food, plant-based diet because I told them to, right? It's like that same thing that we're talking about in the family medicine clinic, where people aren't ready to hear, they're not ready to hear. But you might be able to incite in them, the feeling of like you have control over what's going to happen to you in the next 5 to 10 years if you make a couple small changes. And people are often ready to hear some of that.
Yeah, they have to have the pain, like, something happened to them,
Yeah.
something triggered them. And then that's when you get them, when they're like ready to get that information. So I want to move a little bit and talk about the business model that you have for our listeners. We're trying to give physicians some tips so that they know specific things so that they can either deal with burnout or prevent it, or work from a more entrepreneurial point of view. So let's talk about Wholist as a company.
Yep.
Who works with you and how did you develop this?
Well, when I first started, so 4 years ago, it was just me. And so I was doing all of the things. And, my biggest piece of advice for anyone who's doing anything entrepreneurial is that you should only touch something once. And so like I tried to automate almost everything that I could do, so that I wouldn't have to do it again, so that I could do more things, right? Because it's like if I'm doing the same thing if I'm onboarding the same client over and over again the same way, like why isn't that something that can be done on an automation? So at the first it was just that, as me like building the company, building the systems, building the automations for the program. And then I started hiring coaches probably 6 months into Wholist. Again, realizing that, my time, I didn't start a new business so that my time was the only thing that was bringing in revenue, right? That's the problem in medicine, is that it's requiring us to be present. And so it was like, I have a lot of skills. I may not be the best coach. Someone else might be able to do that and put that energy in and the power in and their expertise in, or maybe I'm a better organizer and creator. So I started hiring coaches about 6 months in. At this point, we have 3 weight wellness coaches. We have 3 mindset coaches. One of them is a life coach. Another one is Brene Brown trained. Another one is a hypnotherapist. And then I have 3 VAs, someone that helps kind of my client success perspective in terms of helping people with like issues that come up. And then 2 sales folks.
That's a big team, huh? In 4 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Did you get coaching yourself on business, or how did you do it? Did you have any business training before?
I did not have any business training, but it doesn't sound like it's relevant, but I ran a nonprofit for a really long time. And I think being sort of like okay with risk and managing teams, I think was really helpful for me, that came from that experience. And then, yes, I've done all the coaching. I've had a business coach. I had a marketing coach. We went through a sales coaching program. I think, there's so much to learn from other people. Like, it's one of those things that's like, I didn't go to marketing school. Turns out somebody else did. Well, I should just have them tell me how to do it, like instead of learning it all on my own. So I'm a big proponent of coaching.
I think as physicians, at times we might lose sight that other people specialize on other things because we have spent so much time in medicine that we lose track. Like for marketing, to be a good marketer, you also have to study something.
Right.
So we have to get people to help us and we have to learn from them too. So now if I'm interested in your program, what happens to me? Like I'm ready for change. What transformation will I gain from your program and how's the process?
So the first thing we would do is we get on the phone with each person who's considering coming in, because we want to invest our whole self into getting you to your goals. So we need to make sure that you're not just someone who's just going to throw some money at a problem and not actually do anything. And so we want to make sure that people are the right fit so that you succeed, so we succeed. So we get on the phone with everyone. If we think that we have something that can kind of help guide you towards your goals, then we'll offer that to you there. We have different kind of tiers.
Who's that first interview? Who do they interview with?
One of the strategy coaches on the sales team. And so figure that we have different, we have some people come in just for culinary strategy coaching. Some people come in for the whole kind of premier weight wellness program, which is a combined weight wellness and mindset coaching. And there's 12 weeks of basically daily education for me around how your brain and body work around food and health change and movement, neuroplasticity, nerdiness. And then those 2 coaches assigned to them. We have a fitness program. We have all sorts of different options, including a self-directed program if you don't feel like coaching is something that you're ready to dive into. So we really I've tried to come up with, enough different options that we're not just cookie cuttering, like you need to eat only plants and low carb, you know what I mean? And healthy fats. And we don't some people are going to come in and wanting to continue to eat animals, and some people are still going to want to drink alcohol, and some people are going to want to be vegan and
moonshine. We want moonshine.
Exactly. So we want to, what I want more than anything is for people to figure out what works for them. Can they understand how their brain and their body are working well enough that they can live their life and not get into that restriction, rebellion cycle that ends up with some sort of shame around something they should be doing. When in fact, what I want them to do is just be able to eat food that you really love, move your body in a way that makes you joyful, understand how your thoughts are creating your actions, understanding that the decisions that you make are not necessarily just because you're lacking in willpower. It's because you have some hormones that are, confused because of actions and choices that you've made before. And what can you do moving forward to give yourself some grace around that?
So you've put a great team together that really it's like almost personalized medicine, right? To some extent. What challenges have you had in putting this whole business together from the beginning? What has been your main 3 challenges that you can think of?
Marketing. I mean, it's how do you find people that you can help fix what ails them, right? And that is tricky sometimes, especially in the world of Facebook ads. I mean, you can spend tons and tons and tons of money on ads, and they may or may not convert. And what worked in 2020 may not necessarily be what works now. And being fluid and okay with that is challenging because you feel like, oh, it was working. Why isn't it working now? All right, I'm spending all this money, and is there anything coming back from that? So just the continual, risk to reward.
An evolution. You have to basically change and adjust to the changes of the years because, maybe at the beginning of the 2020 year, we know that things were quite different than now. And so marketing, how do you outsource that? How do you choose the person who's going to help you with marketing?
Yeah, I've tried. So it's really interesting. So I have friends in my city who run a small marketing agency. I went and sat with them at the beginning of 2018 when I was coming up with all these ideas. And one of them pointed me to someone that she had been on a team with at some point on a different project. And I've been working with him since then. And I have branched out and tried various other things with other companies on top of what he's already done. And I've always just come back to him. So I don't know what the answer. I was lucky to get him, I think. And I've done a lot of other things. I mean, I've tried hiring other Facebook ads people. I've tried hiring LinkedIn people. I've tried hiring an agency to do, all of the posting and the emails and everything. And it just never sounded enough like me, I don't think, or enough like us to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It just, you have to like the people you work with, and they have, it's a mutual, it's a two-way situation. Talking about two-way situation, with the marketing going from one to the other, I hear a lot of situations with choosing your VA and you have 3. So how does that go? It's I've heard some people you have to, get to deal with people you really have trouble until you find that person, but you don't have that person. You have 3 people.
Yeah, I've definitely tried and failed a bunch of times on that as well, especially depending on what it is that you want them to be task focused on. Some of them, some people just don't have the skill or the language to be doing specific tasks. And you don't know that until you try. Right now, all 3 of the people that I have as VAs came to me through other people that I knew and trusted. One of them came through an agency that actually my head sales strategy coach runs a VA agency. And so one of them came through her, and she's been working with me for 2 years, and she's been great. And then the other two came through a former marketing coach that I used that referred them, and they're all doing great. But it is like they also a VA can only be as good as you guide them to be, because you can't expect that they're going to be able to like read your mind, right? And so in a way, like you have to come up with, SOPs and like videos and trainings. And once you do it once, if you record it and you have to hire a new VA and start all over again, you just send them the same trainings, but you have to be patient with them too while they figure it out. I mean, 2 of mine one's in the Philippines and the other one's in Pakistan. And so there's a whole different layer of things that go in, to cross-cultural relationship like that too.
So SOP, standard operating procedures, right? For everybody across the board. And how often do you meet with them?
With the VAs?
Yes.
So we probably once a month.
Virtual assistant, by the way, for whoever doesn't know, VA is virtual assistant. Basically, they help you with everything that you want to do.
Whatever you want them to do. Yeah.
Whatever that can be, that you can have somebody else do for you, like sending emails, organizing events, and she can tell you a lot of other things that she has her 3 VAs do. Yeah.
So they each have very specific tasks, and so one person is in charge of like running my Facebook group. And managing the kind of the contact resource manager that we have linked to the Facebook group in terms of like sending trainings and interacting and messaging and those kind of things. The other 2 are doing more focused kind of networking. And so I probably only meet with them like once a month, but we are on a Voxer. I don't know if anybody knows Voxer, but it's basically like a walkie-talkie app. And we are constantly communicating on that like multiple times a day. If somebody has a question, they pop something in there and I can review it, screenshots of something or something like that.
So how do you balance, or if you've been able to balance, your ER work with Wholist?
I don't think I've reached a balance. I think I'm still working too hard. But it's much better. So January of 2020, I was still doing the job of now 5 people in my company. So it's getting better. I've chosen even before Wholist to work only nights. And that means that we as a physician group pay each other more to work nights, so I can work less. Additionally, I get to choose my own schedule, which nobody else can really do. So I work like 5 or 6 nights on, and then I'll have 10 off. And so that really gives me the space to like, I just on my ER shifts those weeks, like my team knows that they can Voxer me all they want, but I may not be available to like actually do any work. Whereas, the space off of emergency medicine gives me the opportunity to kind of work more normal hours and get kind of chunks of things done that I need to get done. But I try to take 2 days off a week. It doesn't always happen, but I have little boys, and so they need time too.
So how do you get to see them? How do you organize your day amongst, your family, and your 2 jobs? You have 2 jobs there.
Yeah. Well, I would say I think working nights has been actually really helpful, because if I was working days or evenings, I would miss parts of the time that they're home. But this way I get home 6:30 in the morning and they're up shortly thereafter and hang out and breakfast and get ready, and they're out the door with my husband to go to school at 8:30, and then I sleep for the day, and then I wake up and we do the same thing for dinner and bedtime, and then I work out and go back to work. So it works out pretty well because I don't miss much when they're when they're in the house.
So actually those are benefits from being a nocturnist, which you are as an emergency medicine, and that's an advantage of being an emergency medicine doctor. So which things do you love about being a doctor, and which things do you love about being a physician entrepreneur?
I mean, I said this already, but it is an honor and a humbling honor to be part of somebody's life at that moment where they really need that impact, and to hold space for them, and however it is. whatever it is that they're going through. Being a night shift emergency medicine physician can also be very entertaining because people make really bad decisions. And I mean, you really can't make stuff up that like happens.
I've done anesthesia at night too, so yeah. I know which decisions.
It's just like, oh my goodness.
There's books and books and books that you can write at that time.
Yeah.
And then you end up with a little bit of moonshine again.
Yes, exactly. No, but I think it is very humbling to be part of people's lives like that. And I really like it. In terms of being a physician entrepreneur, I'm just pleased that I figured out a way to give myself some freedom around what I want to do with my time in terms of revenue generating activities. I think in 2016, 2017, I was feeling stuck and sort of beholden in the middle of, a rapidly changing healthcare system that does not necessarily love us or treat us well as physicians. And so I think having the opportunity to use my skills and my brain in a different way to help people in an entirely different way, but also gives me the freedom to say, well, I only want to work 8 shifts a month instead of 16, whatever I was doing before. And it makes me a better doctor when I'm there, not being there all the time.
Exactly. So we're trying to help physicians work for joy, not for need, because you really tend to be more productive. It's really good for the whole system. You have happier physicians and patients benefit, everybody benefits. Do you feel yourself, and, even as emergency medicine physician during COVID or before that, you've been through burnout yourself?
I don't think I ever burned out, but I was a medical director for a while, for a few years around like 2013, 2012. It didn't bring out the best of me because I expect people to do the things that they say in the meeting, and it just seems like so much of the administration of the hospitals that it's not about the patient. It's about who's in what power position and how much money is coming into the system. And I found that to be very challenging for me. So getting out of a leadership role was really good for me to say no, back away. So that was helpful. And then around that 2016, 2017 time, there were some political issues between my group and the hospital system. And it was very challenging from a negotiation standpoint. And that was when it really hit me about how finite, our positions can be when you're not in a position of power. And that was really hard for me. And so I don't think I burned out any of those, but they were not my best years as a physician.
And talking about position of power, I think that culturally physicians, we have given our position of power, and we're certainly suffering for that. And we're not at the table speaking the same language that everybody is. So yeah. Personally, if we're going to talk about it, I think that we have to change the culture because we have to be together. And as physician, you go and, you started college and you always knew that you wanted to be a physician. And that was a straight shot career for you, where you were just under that goal. But historically, and we're around the same age, I believe, it's been very isolating because you are expected to be exceptional, at least academically, to be able to do that. And yes, it takes a village, but at the end, a lot of the responsibility is on your shoulders. So it can be very isolating, and we really never, in this culture here, approach each other as a group. Physicians, we graduate, and we have to do that. And then we have given away our leadership to administrators and people who really haven't studied medicine and don't have that necessarily that connection that we have, that sense of purpose and responsibility that we have as physicians. And I feel like we're the last ones left who are really physicians advocate, but we still don't know how to speak the language to be able to achieve those positions of power. And then it becomes frustrating when we don't understand the system, or we really don't have any place at the table to make any decisions.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the key there is to break down the silos between the specialties, right? Because we have more in common than we don't. And I think social media has been helpful with that in the last few years.
Extremely helpful. We have found each other to a level that, I graduated medicine 25 years ago, and it's been just amazing these last few years, especially after COVID, when we were really, centered in medicine amongst each other.
Yeah. So I think finding a way to do that locally is important too. I mean, in 2018, a few women and I here started this Idaho Women in Medicine organization, and pre-COVID, we were having quarterly events, and sometimes we would talk about business stuff. Sometimes we would just drink wine and hang out and get to know each other. We've had a couple since COVID when the numbers were a little bit down and we could do that. And I think that and we have a Facebook group, right? And I think it's really, that sort of thing is really important for me to just like know who my colleagues are and to know how I can lift them up and what sort of issues their specialties having that maybe I wasn't aware of. And I think it's been really helpful.
Well, it's been awesome to have you here. Do you have any final words of encouragement for our listeners? Any tips regarding physician entrepreneurship or becoming healthy, like you're through a program like Wholist, like yours? Any final words?
Well, the first thing, while we're still talking about kind of the politics of healthcare, there is an organization that's relatively new that's called Take Medicine Back. And I think you can find them at takemedicineback.org. There's a Facebook group as well, and they're doing a lot of advocacy around private equity in medicine. So I think it's an interesting thing in terms of coming together across specialties to check out. In terms of tips, the one thing that I think it's just really important that we understand is that we as physicians are super savvy and super resilient, and we have a ton of skills, and people may not think that you have the skills to become an entrepreneur, but you can. It just means you need to have the right idea that gives you the passion that you want to do some extra work for a while. And it's not going to be like, quick money, any of this stuff, but if it can bring you joy and it can bring, solutions to other people's problems, like that's what we're good at in medicine. And so it's just thinking a little bit outside of the box on what your skills are and what you want to do. And then I guess the last thing that I would want to say is just that our thoughts do control our actions. And if you are thinking that you can't do something, whether that's you can't lose weight, or you couldn't run that 5K, or you can't be a physician leader, or you couldn't start a business, guess what? You won't. And so it's just really like recognizing the things that you're saying to yourself and identifying whether those things that you're saying, would you say them to your sister or your mom or your best friend? If not, then change the language. And are those thoughts going to get you to where you want to go? And if they're not, just change the language that you're using for yourself. And that's not just physician entrepreneurship. That's parenting, that's spousing, that's, being a doctor, being a leader, being, a sister. It's figuring out, how do you want to create your future? And you have to tell yourself you can do it. So.
Well, Heather Hammerstedt, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today. And I look more of you, more of Wholist, and more of your help for our patients and our community. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned for more of our Design Your Physician Life podcast, which was brought to you today by our Maxillary Mastermind, an exclusive mastermind for physician entrepreneurs. We will continue to bring you useful resources to develop your physician entrepreneur life like we did today with Dr. Hammerstedt. You can visit her website at wholisthealth.com. That is WHOLISTHEALTH.com. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a great time as we did. Stay in touch with us. Visit our website, maxallure.com. That is MAXALLURE. And please don't forget to subscribe, like us, give us 5 stars, and share the love with your friends and family. See you later. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.